afternoon to you. Well, there seem to be concerns that there's a national shortage of glass, and that means that there'll be a shortage of bottles. Now, you may think to yourself, who would be affected by a shortage of bottles? Maybe you are worried about running short of tomato sauce or bottled figs. Maybe it's jam that you're really worried about. If there's a shortage of glass, how on earth are we going to distribute jam around our country? I think you'll find that people who are actually most worried are in the alcohol industry. Lucky Ntimane is the convener of the National Liquor Traders Council. Lucky, good afternoon to you. I'm not going to ask you how worried you are about bottled figs, but I'm going to ask you how worried you are about the national shortage of bottles.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity, Stephen. It was a pleasure talking to you and Newzroom Afrika viewers at home. It's a big problem that we are facing. Just to give you a context, the shortage of glass is 100,000 tons of glass, which is equivalent to 500 million beer bottles, and that is almost 12% of the total output produced by Council on an annual basis. And that is almost equivalent to the Nigel plant that was commissioned by Council. It was meant to produce 100,000 tons of glass per year. So this is a huge number, and it's a number that cannot be recovered.
What seems to have caused this problem? I mean, is this the lockdown? They had to stop production, there was no demand.
Yes, certainly. So this is a direct consequence of the lockdowns that we had to experience or endure. Because if you look at the production demand during lockdowns, they almost fall to zero levels. And that means that Council cannot produce the quantities that they ought to produce because there is no demand for that glass. But also there's the cost effect to that. Council during an alcohol ban loses 8 million rand a day over and above the lost production that they had to endure. So this is a big number, not just for Council, but for the entire alcohol value chain. And the worrying trend is that this can only be resolved sometime next year, around May 2022, because Council has now approved by the board to continue with that investment in Niger, which is going to bring back almost 100,000 tons of glass. But as it stands now, it seems like this problem is going to be with us for the next 6 months or so.
I mean, a lot of people, try and renew bottles, but you don't really reuse them in the alcohol industry, do you? You use some of them, but not others.
Yes, certainly. So if we look at the non-returnable bottles, for example, Savannah will come in a non-returnable bottle. So it means that, there isn't any glass that is going back to be reused. Yes, you will have the recycling taking place, but the recycling will only represent about 30% of the total produced glass in that space. So the recycling will not necessarily help. All we need is, a fresh production of glass, which is not going to happen now. That 12% volume that is not going to be produced cannot be recovered unless that Nigel plant is being commissioned, which can only take place in May. So this is something that we are going to have to live with. The banks have not been kind to us, and now we're having to pay that price, with this shortage of glass. And it's certainly going to affect us as liquor traders, Stephen, because if we do not have stock, we're not going to sell anything. And December almost represents a 30% increase in sales for our traders. So now that, the opportunity comes for us to sell more, is going to happen without the necessary stock needed to actually bring in the sales. So it's a double whammy, and it's something that, we didn't anticipate, but we have to live with.
I mean, we're talking about bottles, and look, if I am going to have a drink of, a soft drink of some kind, I prefer it to come in a bottle rather than in a can, but you can sell alcohol in cans. And I mean, most beers, most ciders are available in cans as well. I mean, can they make up the shortfall there?
I'm not clued up on the technicalities of having to ship some of the products into cans. But I do not think that it will make the shortfall because most of the alcohol beverages come in a glass. So to make that shift will require significant investment, and I don't think there will be that appetite to invest, especially in an economy that is depressed, especially in an industry that has not really been able to fully recover. So I do not think that will be a solution, as it were, for the alcohol industry to consider.
Lucky Ntimane, thanks very much indeed. Convener of the National Liquor Traders Council, I do appreciate the time.